Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Honourable Minister, colleagues at the head table, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends who haven't seen me for 20 years. I've been given 7 minutes to provide a sort of umbrella picture of leveraging regional international partnerships for attaining science-based climate targets in the fisheries and aquaculture sectors of Caribbean SIDS. Now, like I said, I have 7 minutes. I'm going to challenge myself to keep within the 7 minutes. And thanks, the presentation by Milton provides a very comprehensive overview of the challenges we face today with climate change. It's a bleak picture, and it's worse than what he's pointed out. Trust me, it's getting worse on a day-by-day basis. So, yes, Milton, yes, but it is a lot more serious than we realize. When someone says they were diving here in Antigua and got to 30 feet, the temperature was 86.5 degrees Fahrenheit. This is unprecedented. This is extremely warm oceans, and our resources can't survive in those temperatures. As Milton indicated, they live within a very narrow tolerance range. Anything outside of that would be lethal to them. So we are in serious, serious trouble. What can we do about it? Not too sure. We contribute very little to emissions globally, and that's a region itself. So when you might have heard of the 1.5 to stay alive. Anyone has not heard of that campaign? 1.5 to stay alive? I see some nods. I know some of you have. And this was popularized in 2015, the Paris COP. Made very popular then. It means that we have to aim towards a temperature increase that's no more than a 1.5 degrees Celsius target. In actual fact, we surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius last year. We went over 2 degrees Celsius, but then El Nino contributes to those elevated temperatures we had as well. A 1.5, any increase of the 1.5 beyond, of course, the industrialization period is detrimental to our well-being, to the ecosystems on which we depend. And we are very near that 1.5 degree threshold. So as far as we're concerned, this region contributes minuscule amounts to climate change. Climate change was always there. It always existed. The world exists because of climate change. That's why we have seasons and everything else, etc. The world exists because of climate change. What we're seeing are the impacts of accelerated climate change because of industrialization, the emissions and the greenhouse gases that Milton spoke to, our nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide, methane, which is the most potent greenhouse gas. And we're pumping lots of those into the atmosphere. So it's a lot worse for us because there is no end in sight. We're still pursuing the fossil fuels and we're still pushing industry that pump methane gas. And methane is also naturally occurring gas. So as we see the melt in the Arctic, methane is also being released. They're natural sources. So we're in trouble, really, really trouble. So providing science-based targets for fisheries implies we've got to do what we can to reduce our carbon footprint, as the Minister said in his address this morning. So Milton made mention of fisheries and aquaculture. That defines the industry as we know it. Fisheries would focus on decarbonizing. The Minister made mention, and Milton as well, of the need to transition to more efficient engines. The two-stroke fossil fuel-based engines are very inefficient, emissions into the air. Now, this is not our contribution to global emissions reduction. Yeah, we have an obligation, yes. We do have an obligation, but this is primarily to reduce the carbon footprint of the sector for our own economic benefit. So the context is we're doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for ourselves. Aquaculture, on the other hand, will look more towards electrification, more renewable energy sources of power. We are looking to reduce the carbon footprint of the entire fishery sector for our own benefit because there are economic advantages in pursuing those goals and those targets. The fisheries in the Caribbean is mainly artisanal. I think Milton gave you a very long description of what that sector looks like. So it means that we're not the heavy industrialized fisheries that pump that use, we're out at sea for days and weeks on the end, and we're exploiting the resources in a manner that we can't even dream of in the Caribbean. But we're still small. So it means that notwithstanding that as a region, our footprint, carbon footprint, is small compared to the rest of the world, fisheries is even smaller. Yet the transitions we need to make are for our economic benefit, as I said earlier. So aquaculture is relatively small within the region as well. We don't have the land mass, we don't have the water resources, and now we're in a major drought situation. And aquaculture relies on water, fresh water. We don't have water. Every country in this Caribbean has declared a water emergency, from Jamaica down to, including Guyana. And Dominica, which is the land of many rivers, also has a water emergency as well, because of the prolonged drought. So we're now coming out of that. So aquaculture, or the future of aquaculture, is dependent, unless of course we're doing mariculture, marine-based aquaculture. If we are freshwater dependent, then there's a problem. Belize right now, where I'm based, has been dry for the past few weeks. Or Milton as well would tell you. And for months, there have been bushfires of an unprecedented nature. All of Mexico, the Central America, Guatemala, Belize is dry. We're breathing smoke every single day. The entire half the country is covered by a layer of smoke because of bushfires. The forests are burning, the fields are burning. And yesterday was a meeting with SEDIMA to try to determine what do we do to reduce the impact of that smoke inhalation. It's dry, there's no signs of rain. I came in on Saturday and I woke to the sound of thunder and lightning on Sunday morning. I said, wow, we could do with a bit of that. I said, first thunder and lightning storm in months. It felt good to hear it. You did. And we could do a bit of that in Belize. So if we have reduced rainfall, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, these are the scientists who sit together and look at projections all over the world. They are saying that this region is getting drier. So we'll have the torrential downpours, heavy rain events that will cause landslides and flooding everything. And we're seeing those, but it's getting drier. So what's the future for aquaculture based on freshwater hold for us? That's indeterminate. So we have those issues to confront as we seek to reduce the footprint, the carbon footprint of the fishery sector. So notwithstanding, we are trying to establish science-based targets for the development of the sector. We have the realities that we need to consider. Next slide, please. In our own development, and that's Milton's problem. It's also our collective problem as well, because we don't exist in silos. So we all have a role to play to finding the solutions to the challenges. Some of those are external and difficult to address. Milton spoke a lot about the stressors. I'm not going to go into those stressors. He spoke about the pollution, the heat, the ocean acidification, etc. There's a problem we need to address is our weak governance. And notwithstanding, governance is not as strong as it should be everywhere within the region. We're now transitioning to a blue economy program within the Caribbean. And someone said we shouldn't be called small island developing states, we should be called large ocean small island developing states. Because our ocean masses are much more significant than the actual size of our physical land mass itself. But that's the base of our economy, and we haven't utilized that space as much as we should. So even while we're transitioning to blue economy, we need to have strong governance systems to help us transition to a more efficient blue economy program for our own economic benefit. So possible partnerships. And so how do we finance the transition from where we are today to where we want to go? It's not always easy for fisheries, because fisheries is a high-risk sector. And Milton spoke about the parametric insurance and the CRIF that they're trying to organize for the sector. This is after many years of trying to get some sort of fisheries or insurance program for fisheries. But the one instrument that could be used is what is called the NDCs, Nationally Determined Contributions, where countries are obligated to reporting to the UNFCCC on their contribution to emissions reductions. And this is where the transition, or at least the move towards more efficient engines in the fishery sector, will benefit us within the region. Now, I know there are advances in electric outboard engines or whatever. We need to find, I'm not saying that that is the solution. I don't think that's been around long enough to be able to determine the effectiveness of those electric outboard engines. And those of you who follow the EV, renewable energy, and the EV trend today in cars and so on, realize that this is transition to other aspects beyond cars itself, beyond vehicles. So, but that's a potential opportunity, and that's something that needs to be explored. But in the economics, EVs are more expensive than the petrol-based alternative. So we need to blend with the blue economy. That goes without saying. Fisheries is part of the blue economy. So how we articulate a blue economy program is necessary to secure the type of investments in fisheries that we require. We're responsible to assessing our risks. It is a high-risk area, but also priorities. And every risk provides an opportunity for development. So we need to be solution-oriented. We need to find a way of looking at those challenges and see how can we reposition ourselves to address the challenges? How can we find the financing? But there are instruments, like I said, and that's the NDCs. And there is an NDC partnership, an institution set up to help provide finances to emission reduction type investments in the region. And that is the one opportunity, I think, that may present itself to helping with the finances for transitioning to a low carbon fishery sector. There's also national adaptation plans. Milton did mention of a few of the projects that are working towards adaptation. That is a given. We have to adapt to changing conditions. Ecosystem-based approaches. Milton, I didn't hear you mention that one. Maybe you did. But ecosystem-based approaches, something we've been doing for a while, but we need to challenge our own thinking and how we can make that more effective for us as well. And of course, multi-partner project submissions. CRFM is already working on projects together with the 5 Cs. We've already received approval of one particular project and hopefully others soon to help advance the changes we want to see in the fishery sector. So that's my contribution to the discussions. Thank you.